Coming up, real estate investing and building my favorite real estate investing CRM, REsimpli, right after this. If you're new here, we help service members and veterans achieve financial freedom through real estate investing, entrepreneurship, and personal finance. And if you're willing to take it to the next level or wanting to take it to the next level, we also have a mastermind called The War Room that you should absolutely check out. Now, today's episode is with Sharad Mehta, the founder and CEO of REsimpli, which is my personal favorite real estate investing CRM. And he is building this out as an all-in-one solution for tech for real estate investors. But he doesn't just talk the talk, as Sharad has successfully completed over 750 deals in the past decade and owns 50 rental properties, 90% of which are free and clear. And he manages his entire operation virtually with a small team using his CRM, REsimpli. And this is going to be a lot of fun because I really like this platform. So in this episode, we're going to cover his real estate investing, his building of the software company, what prompted the building, lessons learned, and why you should use it. So definitely make sure you listen all the way through and enjoy the show. Hey, Sharad, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, David. Thank you for having me, man. Super excited to be here talking to you.
Absolutely. You know, I'm a big fan of your CRM, your software that you've developed. So I look forward to digging into a lot of this. Before we kind of go back and tell backstory, I'm really just curious because I know that you are a fairly large scale real estate investor and obviously run what I believe to be one of the best CRMs out there. Were you a software developer or a real estate investor first?
Only real estate investor, never been a software developer. Still, I'm not, never plan to be.
Sorry.
No,
in that case, what am I messing up on the terminology there?
I used to be an accountant. Yeah, I used to be an accountant. I moved from Chicago to Carlsbad 2015. I had 40, 50 flips that I was doing a year. So I started looking at software that I would need. And being an accountant, I wanted something, with strong data tracking, KPI, and Podio was pretty much what everyone was using back then. I didn't like it. I just hated the way it looked, the way it functioned. So I decided to hire a couple of developers and just help them, create something for myself, and that kind of grew into what it is now.
Okay, so just full on entrepreneur side of it then, and real estate investor first, and I like that. I think that's probably why your software or your system is so good and why so many real estate investors like it is that you built it with the premise of, I want this for my own business. I want to make my life easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still to this day, everyone on my team is on REsimpli. We don't use any other platform. That was the intention from day one when I started with the idea of REsimpli is something where everyone on my team could be on one platform. That's exactly what we're doing. And, thousands of other companies across the country are doing the same thing.
Beautiful. I love it. And so for the listeners, I know you just recently moved back to Carlsbad, California. What markets are you actively investing in?
Sorry, David, your voice cut out there.
No worries. I just asked what markets you're currently investing in while living in Carlsbad.
Just in Northwest Indiana. So I used to live in Chicago, so I invest in Indiana, which is like Northwest Indiana, which is about 30 to 45 minutes drive from downtown Chicago. That's the only market that I've only invested in. I've done some other deals here and there with other investors in other market, but Northwest Indiana is like 99% of what I've done is in Northwest Indiana.
Easy. I like it. And obviously you've got systems in place, so you're able to continue rocking and rolling there from a distance. When I first found REsimpli, it was through our mutual friend, Ryan Dossie. I was in CCF. I was learning how to invest with him. Decided to use his CRM, and I had kind of putzed around with Podio, and there was another, I don't even remember the name of the other one that I had messed around with. Podio took, for it to be good, you had to customize so much, right. And that just wasn't my thing. I'm not inclined that way at all. And so, he introduced me to REsimpli, and I was like, wow, this is intuitive. It's simple. It's got all the features I need. And, I fell in love, right? I still, not as active of a off-market investor right now, but the team that I have kind of partnered with on that realm. That's exactly, they basically took over
Right.
my existing CRM and they're using REsimpli and we love it. So,
Thank you, man.
can you give us a little bit of the backstory? How did you go from, I mean, you were an accountant background, you got into real estate investing. Can you walk us through kind of how that journey, like what got you into real estate in the first place?
Yeah, man. So I was an accountant, so always been a lot into personal finance, read all the books, Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, everything that they wrote, used to follow them. And then I started looking at, financial freedom, and I realized, the job that I had, it's great. I was making decent money, but it wasn't going to get me to the goal that I, wanted, like financial freedom, freedom of time and money. So I started looking at, okay, what could I do that it's going to help me make a lot of money pretty quickly, rather than getting like 5, 7% pay raise. So no jokes. At one point, I wanted to be a full-time poker player, and I absolutely sucked at it. I have a horrible poker face. If I have pocket aces, or you would know if you're playing poker against me that I have pretty good hand. That's how bad I am.
That's
Um,
funny.
and I'm like, yeah, okay, so this is not gonna work out for me.
Yeah.
And then I looked into stocks, bonds. Just I don't have the nerve for the daily market going up and down. So I'm like, yeah, no, this just made me too anxious putting money in stock market and watching it, go up or down. Then I used to follow a lot of personal finance, and I was reading a blog, and I was reading the comment section of the blog. That's where all the fun is. Someone had mentioned about a book called Millionaire Real Estate Investor. So I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I want to be, millionaire. And I'm like, all right, if I do that through real estate, that's not too bad. So I started looking more into it, and it seems like 80% of the people that become millionaire become through real estate. So I started digging more into it, and then started Googling a lot of things, and bigger pockets kept coming up, similar to kind of your story. So became more active on bigger pockets, bought my first duplex in August 2010, bought another one in September 2010, a month later. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. The first property I bought was, I think I paid like about 25,000. I was all in for about 35. 2-unit property, I was getting $1,300 a month in rent. Like, wow, it's amazing. If I have like 5, 6 of these and I manage them well, it could replace my full-time income. Then I decided to leave my job in March 2011. And I thought, this is like once in a lifetime opportunity. If I go full speed ahead, the upside is really, really high. The downside is, worst case, I lose everything. I tried for a year or two. I could always go back and find a job, being an accountant. So that was the decision. Then I started kind of buying rental properties. And because I was following Dave Ramsey, so I was very aggressive about paying them off pretty quickly. So the first couple of properties I bought, I had money saved up. I used my own money. After I ran out, I borrowed money from friends, family, but I was very intentional about, the kind of loans that I had. So I would do 7-year amortization with 2-year balloon. So I was forced to pay the money, as quickly as possible. So I kind of
Oh
grew
wow.
from there. Then 2012 through 14, I connected with a company based in Australia. They were helping Australian investors buy properties in US because of the exchange rate. The Australian dollar was very strong against the US dollar. So I was wholesaling a lot of properties to them. And then from there, all the money that I had, I just kept investing in more rental properties. And then 2015, my wife, she got a job in Carlsbad. So we moved to Carlsbad. I still had these, flips that I was doing. And that's kind of where I started looking at a software that I could use in my own business.
So
Um,
how many rental properties do you, or units, or however you want to quantify it,
about
do you have
50.
right now? Wow.
50, and I would say 90% of them are paid for free and clear. Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
then, yeah, so that was the goal from beginning. Was I don't want to have, I think it was also influenced by the time that I was, because of the time that I was investing 2010, and all the, market crash that had happened was because people were over leveraged. So I think that had a big influence on my decision to, be own these properties free and clear. And then I was very mindful, diligent about paying them off. Even the loans that I have on a couple of properties, about 5 units combined, it's like less than 60, 70,000. So I'll probably pay them off next year and just have 100% free and clear portfolio.
And yeah, talk about peace of mind and how to actually
Yeah.
maximize your cash flow. I've got, when I first started, I didn't have a whole lot of cash. In fact, I had like a negative net worth. I didn't have a whole lot of income. I was active duty enlisted, Marine Corps. And so I was leveraging, and that was great. And it cash flowed and it worked out well. And luckily, that means that the more I've owed them or owned them, the lower my loan to value is right now. But definitely not the most secure. I mean, with rates changing and everything, it's absolutely been. There have been some moments where I'm like, oh, my
Right.
cash flow is not where it was, and so
Right. No,
yeah,
absolutely, man. I think with me, like being an accountant, I totally understand I'm leaving a lot of money on the table by not leveraging. But it gives me the peace of mind. It gives me, for me personally, given my financial situation, is totally worth it. I want to be like, I don't have any goals to have like the fanciest car or the fanciest watch or anything. Like I have a pretty moderate lifestyle, which my family and I are very happy with. So the most important thing for us was just the peace of mind of reliable cash flow coming in and not worrying about if a tenant leaves, if I'll be able to pay the mortgage for that or not. So yeah, I mean that was a very intentional about that, not going for the highest number of properties, but going for the highest cash flow given the properties that we had.
yeah. So okay, so as we shift gears, you were scaling, you moved across the country, and you were trying to figure out how to make things easier for yourself. When you originally had the vision for REsimpli and just essentially building yourself a system to help you close deals, uh, what was that like? What was your vision of what it was going to become? Is this what we see now? Kind of I guess the work that you've been working towards the whole time, or has that vision evolved as you've grown?
But I think that vision has definitely evolved. When I started out, I had a very simple business, right? I was buying, when back then you could still buy a decent number of properties from MLS, but then right around 2014, 15, the market started shifting. I started doing more direct to seller marketing. So my business was very simple. I buy properties. I wasn't wholesaling anything. I was closing on them, rehabbing them, and then selling to retail or other investors. There was no assignment. I didn't even honestly know what assignment was, how it worked, wholesaling, the whole idea of assignment contract. I had no idea about that.
Mm.
So the first version of REsimpli was very heavily project management focused. And then the CRM that we had, it didn't even have a column for assigned to buyer. And then once we rolled out, a lot of our users started saying, hey, it would be cool if you added a column for assigned to buyer because that's what we do a lot of. So I had to kind of understand what assigned to buyer was, what assignment was, and then it kind of grew from there. I don't have a buyers list because we're not wholesaling. So the latest update that we made to disposition, buyers management, and everything was done connecting with other users. I mean, now everything we're doing, it's it's grown way beyond my particular real estate investing needs. Now, a lot of things that we're rolling out are based on the feedback that our investors are using and saying, hey, it would be great if it did this, if it did that. So then we prioritize based on that. A lot of the stuff that we roll out, I personally don't need that in my business because my business, I don't do wholesaling. I don't, have a buyer's management website or stuff like that. But yeah, now it's very focused on what our users need. Like what's the next set of features that would solve a problem for them.
Yeah, and that's been very evident. My interactions with you and your company all along have been that I always really liked the fact that you guys took feedback and ran with it. I mean, there's so much that's
Absolutely.
been built out.
Yep.
because of
Yeah.
that feedback.
Yeah. And then it's being diligent about, if we have 100 different people asking for 100 different things, then we need to go through that feedback and see, what's the common thread? What are a lot of people working on? If we have limited resources, what would we need to work on that will solve pain point for a lot of people? So that's the fun part about being kind of where we are now, just going through the data and see, okay, what should we work on next that will solve the biggest set of problems that our users are facing.
Yeah. Do you have kind of a grandiose vision of where you want ReSimpli to be in 5 years, or is it more you're personally happy with where you're at and kind of just adapting as investors request new things?
No, it's interesting that you asked that. I'm working with someone on kind of extracting that vision and looking like 3 5 years ahead, having that big vision, then breaking it down into yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly goal just to keep my focus. It gets a little bit hard at times. I'm sure like you've run into that also. Like once you create something and you never thought would get to the point where it is now, but you're like, wow, holy crap, this is amazing. But then you're like, all right, looking back, like I could have thought much bigger than I did. And that's kind of where I want to make sure I'm not looking, 5 years down the road, I'm not looking back and saying, oh man, I wish I thought bigger. So that's where I'm working with someone just to kind of extract that vision out of me and make sure it's like very crystal clear.
I think that's smart. One of the things that I have members of my mastermind do when they first get in there is create a 3 year vision for themselves and then
Oh, that's such a
goals.
smart thing to do, man.
Yeah.
Such a smart thing to do. Yeah, you want to start with that so you know kind of which direction you're going in. It's like going from driving from New York to Chicago. You want to take the fastest route possible. You don't want to idea of going from New York to Chicago. You want to go there, but you don't want to go down to Texas and then drive up to Chicago. You still end up there, but it could take you, few extra days. So I think what you do with your mastermind, it's super, super smart. And that's like the best way to start is have a clear vision and push yourself, right? Test your limit and see, where you could take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you personally have a favorite feature within ReSimpli?
I think for me, it would be just how everything integrates with accounting. It's not going to be the most popular feature because it's like, when you get into, sure, you running a business, it's like the accounting stuff, that gets like pushed to the back. It's like, it's like you only worry about it, when it comes tax time. But for me, being an accountant, just kind of how it's seamlessly integrated, I'd say that's probably my favorite feature. Just being in there and like looking at my numbers and knowing kind of what's working, what's not working on the business. Yeah.
What? Wait, why you got to call me out like that?
Oh man, yeah,
I've got my
yeah.
assistant working. I gave her like the QuickBooks course, and it was like, you're going to learn all this because it won't get done unless you do
I
it.
know, man. Yeah, that's like the least, attractive part of a business. Just generally speaking, business is like the all the administrative stuff that you have to do. But that's like the most important, like in the long term, it's going to add the most value to the businesses, like kind of knowing what your numbers are. So yeah, it's for me that, but I would say like for most people, I would say just the fact that everything is integrated, like they can just literally log in, buy a number, start calling. I mean, they can't start texting right away because of the 10 DLC, but it's just like how seamlessly everything integrates. That's probably the most, value that our users see from the platform.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. One of the
Yeah.
things, I mean, there's so much that ReSimpli did for me, but I absolutely loved from a marketing standpoint the different phone numbers. So
Yep.
every
Yep.
person who calls in, I know immediately do they come from a direct mail or a phone
Absolutely.
call, or I thought that was huge. And then I'll tell you the drip campaigns. It's amazing how I had never used a CRM prior that I had built out correctly to actually have drip campaigns. And then I never really thought much about them until one day I got a phone call from a lady who I hadn't talked to in 15 months and didn't know I couldn't remember anything about our interaction, didn't even remember talking to her until I pulled up the notes, and I had all the notes there, and she'd been on a drip campaign, and I was like, oh shoot. And she owned 2 houses on a single parcel. We ended up making like a $23,000 spread on wholesaling that deal. And I was like, oh, well, these are cool. Like this drip campaign
Right?
just paid for the software for the next like decade.
I know,
So
right? Isn't that
yeah,
amazing? Like how such a simple thing. I mean, I just the automating the follow up. The money is in the follow up, but then for someone to remember, put notes in their calendar, if you can take all of that away, just press a button, and then the system takes care of everything for
yeah,
you. That's the
absolute
beauty
game
of
changer.
it. Just like automating the follow up without you not even knowing that the system is, recently is following up for you, while you're sleeping. And then when the seller is ready, you'll get a call. You just log in, see all the conversation you've had, and just pick it up exactly where you left off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been super, super, super beneficial for sure. Um, what, as you're building out this company, what have been some of the like unforeseen challenges that you had and biggest lessons learned? I don't know anything about the developing of a software company.
Hey, David, sorry, your voice cut out there. I think
Oh.
you were asking about these some unforeseen challenges, and after that, you cut out.
Yeah, unforeseen challenges and just lessons learned along the journey through building this out.
I think the most relevant right now, I would say, is like A2P 10DLC. That's just been like really, really frustrating to deal with, not just for us. I mean, it's just a like, industry-wide thing or just for all businesses. That's been a challenge, like getting our users to kind of start complying with all the regulations that, and then making a decision to switch from one carrier to another because it would be the right best long-term decision for everyone that's using our platform. Even though in the short term it's been painful, but just knowing that in the long term it's going to be the best decision for our users that are using our platform. That, with system related, but just as a like a company wide, I would say some of the unforeseen things have been working with people in different countries, different cultures, different languages. I think that's been interesting. A challenge that I'm still struggling with is how to have a culture. When I'm talking to my team in India, I'm talking to them in local language. When I'm talking to other team members in different, different countries, different departments that we have, I'm talking to them in English. So it's like we have this divide sort of, where I'm connecting with my team in India separately versus everyone else. That's been an interesting challenge that I'm kind of like trying to figure out how
Hmm.
to best navigate that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would say is kind of it's been I never anticipated that. Um, but I don't know, like
Yeah.
even this is something,
It's
even if I
interesting.
look back
The
and see
cultural
what
side of
I could have
things
done
is,
differently, I don't even have clear answers to that. Like knowing I have this problem, if I could go back to the beginning, what would I do differently is something that I still struggle with.
yeah.
You know.
No, I mean, that makes sense. I think that's a lot of times it's like when you're first starting out, you don't really know where you're going with it. So
Yeah.
how are you going to know that you're making good? You don't have that's why the vision's so important. You don't have a way to steer the ship without it.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But no, it's been fun. I mean, it's the challenging days that make the good days even sweeter. If like everything is going great, you're like, oh, you tend to start taking those for granted. You don't appreciate the good days as much you do if you have a bad day. That's when you really appreciate the good day. And one thing I have to keep in mind is, whether it's a good time or bad time, it's not going to last forever. If you have good time, keep in mind, just be mindful of that the good times are not going to last forever. Same thing if you're going through bad times, keep in mind, personal life, business life, that it's not going to last forever. So just keeping that in mind, like looking at a bigger picture of, hey, we're going through this. Let's take it as a learning experience and see how we can come out of this situation as a better company that can serve our users in a much better and productive way.
I like that. And yeah, you guys have been absolutely crushing it. Would you,
Thank you.
I mean, I would imagine at this point, ReSimpli is your full-time gig and real estate is your side hustle. Is that kind
It's
of an
still,
accurate?
yeah, I mean, definitely I spend vast majority of my time on ReSimpli. I still actively flip. I do about 20 flips a year now,
Wow.
but it's very hands off. I live in Carlsbad. My project manager, she lives an hour north of me in Marietta. And then my lead manager, she has been with me for about 4 or 5 years. She used to live in Philippines. She moved to Canada about 6 months ago. So we don't have anyone local in our business. It's just three of us doing about, 20 flips a year. Yeah.
Wow.
And then we're all on ReSimpli, so that's where we kind of manage everything, leads, communication, everything. Yeah, I mean that was the vision from the beginning, that everyone on our team could be on one platform. Doesn't matter where they are, as long as the work is getting done. So that's been, and my bookkeeper, she's based overseas also, managing, like doing my books on a weekly basis. So I'll just go and review the numbers.
I love that you
Yeah.
run such a streamlined team. You know, and 20 flips a year is not small potatoes. That's a lot of properties going at one time, and you run a very lean team through all through one CRM, and I think that's really cool. And that's a
Yeah.
testament, I think, to what you've built, where you're able to do that remotely with nobody living in the local market via
Uh,
ReSimpli.
yeah, absolutely. I don't even know the last time I was actually in Indiana, uh, looking at my properties. I don't know. I think in the last 3 or 4 years, I think I've only been to Indiana once. So yeah, and I,
Wow,
I own a property management company also, so I went more to meet with my property management company, more so to manage the flips.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Um, what's next?
We have another product that we're launching out for agent in few months. Um, that was always, once we kind of knew that, I mean, first of all, we named the company REsimpli because always the goal was to be more broader than just real estate investor. So
Mm,
the agent product that we're launching out, that should be coming out Q1 2024. So excited about that. We're kind of finished the development for the most part. Now we're just testing it out, and then we'll be going live with that. And then just honestly, with ReSimpli, just being more, getting more clarity about my vision, where I want to take ReSimpli next 3 to 5 years, and then just working with everyone on the team, make sure everyone on the team is aligned towards that goal. They feel, emotionally bought in. I feel like, okay, this is, once we reach whatever that might be, the, end of the road, 3, 5 years, how everyone is going to get like value out of everything that we've done.
yeah, I love that. All right, so we've got a few questions that we always try to kind of roll up with. But before we get there, is there anything we've missed that you think is like a must tell, either feature or story within ReSimpli's growth and or your journey?
Hey, David, sorry, you froze up there again.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the internet right now. I just asked if before we jump into the last few questions, I always have. Is there anything we missed or that you think is worth highlighting as far as features or story about ReSimpli or your real estate investing journey?
Um, no, I mean, I think with recently, or just like real estate investing in general, anything in life, I think this year has been learning for us in terms of being very focused on what we're adding value with, reaching out to our customers more and connecting with them at a deeper level and really understanding what their pain points are, rather than, just in our mind thinking, hey, this is what's going to add the most value. I think that's something we need to go back to. That's what we used to do really, really well. And then that's kind of what we're going back to. Like, we're sending out a survey to our users today, and then really getting, feedback from them on, hey, what would you like to see with this specific features that, you've asked us for. And if someone says, hey, I'd like to see this feature be more developed, now we're reaching out, okay, what exactly would you like to see? Can you send us a video? Can you send us some screenshots? And then, reaching out to them and then making them feel like we're really listening to their feedback and we're not just taking it as, all right, this is something we'll get to know. This is something we're going to prioritize based on the feedback that we get. I think that's something we used to do really well, but this year we kind of just didn't prioritize that. So we're going back to that.
Like that. I really like the idea of crowdsourcing ideas.
Absolutely,
I think that's really smart. Okay, so I have this section, 5 questions I call the debrief, and luckily I was able to find a question in the Facebook group that actually kind of fit what we've been talking about. I've really been struggling with that to the point where I'm going to change this question out eventually. But the question was simply, at what point do you need a CRM as a real estate investor? Like, where in your journey do you think it makes sense to start utilizing something like REsimpli?
If you're buying something directly from MLS, you probably don't need, unless you're doing high volume. But if you're buying from MLS, I don't think you need a CRM really. And also if you're doing a deal, every 6 months, you probably don't need it. But once you start doing any direct to seller marketing, that's where I would say if you're spending more than $500 to $1,000, per month on average in marketing, that's where you really want to make sure you have a CRM. For majority of the investors out there, marketing would be the biggest expense for them. So you want to make sure you're getting the best ROI on your marketing. If you're spending, $1,000, $500 to $1,000 a month, let's say sending direct mail to 2 lists, you want to know which list is working. Let's say if you're paying us $100 a month for that, you might be like, oh, I'm spending $500 a month. I could, instead of paying $100 to REsimpli, I could up that to $600. But if you look at it, if you're spending $500, let's say split it into 2 lists that you're mailing out to, what's going to happen is you will realize that one list is working better for you. You'll know kind of what, marketing channel is working best. And that's where a CRM does. It tells you exactly what's working. So it's not an expense, it's more like an investment. But if you're doing, if once you start doing $500 to $1,000 per month marketing direct to seller, that's where I would start looking at CRM. Anything less than that, you can probably, use Google Sheets, Notepad.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would, the only thing I would add to that is that I think if your goal and or vision is to be doing 500 to 1,000 plus,
right.
Like if you are content where you're at and you don't plan on growing, then whatever. But if you're going to be growing it and you're going to get to that point, you might as well start using the CRM ahead of time, so you don't have to transfer stuff and you get used to it before you get a little too busy.
Yeah, exactly. And then, the better systems you have from the beginning, the more ROI you'll see down the road, hands down.
Absolutely. I agree. And REsimpli is, we'll link down below to REsimpli, but it is my favorite, my go-to CRM for sure. All right. So the rest of the questions are just kind of some goofy, some, whatever. So the second question I always ask is, what's the dumbest thing you've ever purchased?
Oh man, dumbest thing. Oh, that's a great question. I'm sure my wife will have a long list of those things that are dumbest things I purchased. Oh, it's funny. I was talking about this yesterday. I bought a house. It came with a Corvette. It had a Corvette in the garage, really old one. I'm not even into cars, but the car was like red, looked great. I paid like 6,000 or 7,000 for it. It was super cheap. I had it shipped from Indiana to California, and then it turns out I was going to need another 20,000 into it. Plus, I would have to deal with California, smog regulations and everything. So I ended up just basically scrapping the car. That was the dumbest thing. Yeah, that I can think of. I'm sure there's a lot, but that's the one that comes to top of my mind.
Cars seem to be a common answer, but usually it's.
I'm not even into cars. That's the crazy thing. I'm not even into cars. I just kind of got carried away. My house is a nice looking car. I'm buying the house. Might as well buy the car.
I love that. I had a buddy who he bought a bunch of apartment complexes, and the owner had like a on-site, single family that they lived in. They like built all these like 2 or 3 apartment buildings behind them, and the owner's husband had passed away, and it was, he'd always run the business, and so he had a workshop that he never went into, or she never went into, and she sells everything. And as they're negotiating, they're doing due diligence, they find that in the workshop is an old, like 1990s, gated shifter Ferrari that's just been sitting there collecting dust. And she was just like, I don't even care. Just take it with the property.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, wow.
I don't know if it ended up being something that he was able to get, working or anything, but I was like, that's a pretty cool find.
Yeah, that is.
What would you say is the smartest purchase you've ever made?
Ooh. Man, I should have anticipated this question. uh, um, I would say, like, for me, it was books, like reading. The book that comes to my mind is Dave Ramsey's book. It doesn't apply to me anymore. It's like when I was first starting out, but the Total Money Makeover, that kind of gave me a mind shift on how to think about money. I think that was pretty influential. And then the book Millionaire Real Estate Investor kind of got me started on my journey. So I would say those two books. Yeah, Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. That was a really good book.
I like that you alluded to, you and I clearly feel the same way about Dave Ramsey. Your response was, you've kind of grown past that, but I always tell people, I'm like, man, Dave is great to get you from, negative to zero. And then at some point you go, okay, this isn't the way that you build wealth quickly.
Right.
Maybe. I mean, it's
right.
Definitely smart to be more frugal than the alternative, but yeah. Well, my next question was going to be about books that you have read that you recommend. I think we just covered that. So if someone's listening to this show, instead of just tuning into the next podcast episode after this, if they're wanting to, really better their financial situation, what do you think they should take as their next actionable step?
Oh man, these are really great questions. For me, honestly, like I would say most important thing would be start with a budget. You know, you can create a free account on mint.com. There's like plenty of, tools out there that you can link up. Just know how much money is coming in and how much money is going out, right? And then, okay, another really good book that I read was The Richest Man in Babylon, right? Just like put 10% of your money aside, right? Just start doing that and then have rest of the money available for spending. I think starting with the budget would be the first thing I would do if you're not doing that. Just know how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, and where it's going out to. I mean, I was like, when I was back in the day, my wife and I, we were making decent money, 6 figures, so like 2008, 9, 10. But we like really bought into the Dave Ramsey, and we would literally have envelopes for different, like buckets, groceries, and other stuff like that, building household stuff and whatnot. Like we would have, yeah, exactly. So just because we wanted to have that forced discipline, and it was fantastic. But it started with the budget, knowing, okay, we have $500 to spend on groceries, for example, for this month. This is all the money we have in the envelope. There's no more. We have $100 to spend on entertainment, movies, whatever, and then we would just stick to that. I think that gave us a good foundation moving forward as our income went up, that we kind of still had those, discipline mindset. I
That's a great answer. I've been telling myself I should probably go back and revisit the envelopes a little bit. Cause I as the business grows, I've definitely been, at least a little bit guilty of lifestyle creep with eating out and things like that. I
Absolutely.
definitely haven't gone too overboard, but it would be sometimes I'm like, man, if I just went back to this, I'd imagine how much money I'd
Yeah.
be able to save and invest.
All right.
So,
The only thing I didn't like about the envelope system were the coins, all the
yeah,
change that you would get.
I just had like a big vat that I just throw them in. I'm like,
Oh
eventually
yeah,
I'll go, and
yeah.
then of course I go to Walmart with this massive thing and I come out with like $70 worth of
Oh yeah, I
quarters.
used to do that. Yep. You go to that coin machine, put all your pennies, quarters, and everything. It would just give you like a Walmart, gift card or something, and you could just use that. I used to love that. Yeah,
Yeah, and inevitably I find some coin from some other country in there, so I'll
yeah.
throw it through like two or three times, and then realize it's not even U.S. currency.
No, it
Like, oh
doesn't. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh man. So where can people find you if they'd like to link up with you or ReSimpli?
Yeah, so I'm not on Instagram or any social media platform. I mean, I do have a Facebook account, but I pretty much use it for our, Facebook community that we have. But the best would be email. My first name, Sharad, at REsimpli.com. That would be the best way to get in touch with me. I still check my emails. I reply to my emails. So yeah, that would be the best way. And then, of course, if they want to learn more about ReSimpli, they can go to REsimpli.com.
Which we will absolutely link
Yep.
down below in the show notes and be pointing people towards as I always do for a CRM. So, well, that's great. Sharad, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely, man. Yeah, thank you, David, for having me on. You've asked some really, really great questions. Took me back to my accounting / personal finance days. So yeah, great interview.
Well, good. I appreciate you.